In this first of 3 linked videos, I'll be talking about loneliness and how at some point in our lives, the chances are that you and I will feel lonely. It's a problem lots of people are talking about at the moment. And it's an important topic and one that causes a lot of worry. And there are plenty of ideas surrounding it that might not be exactly as they seem. Here are 5 of the most common that people talk about. Number 1. Is loneliness all about feeling isolated? Feeling lonely is not the same as being alone. Loneliness is a feeling of disconnection. It's the sense that no one around you really understands you and that you don't have the kind of meaningful connections you would like. Isolation can be a factor, but it's not the only one. You can feel lonely in a crowd, just as you can feel perfectly happy, even relieved, to spend some time alone. Often, some of the most popular restful activities we prefer are ones that tend to be done alone. Sometimes we want to be alone. But if we don't have the option to spend time with people who understand us, that's when loneliness hits us. Number 2. Is there an epidemic of loneliness right now? Loneliness is undoubtedly getting a higher profile, but that doesn't mean that a higher percentage of people feel lonely now compared to a few years ago. Using studies going back to 1948, research has shown that the proportion of older people experiencing long-term loneliness has remained steady for 70 years, with 6 to 13% saying they feel lonely all or most of the time. But it is true that the actual numbers of lonely people are rising simply because there are more people in the world nowadays. So there is no doubt that loneliness is causing a lot of sadness. Number 3. But it's bad to be lonely, isn't it? Loneliness hurts. But the good news is that it's often temporary and shouldn't be seen as entirely negative. Instead, it can be the signal for us to look for new friends or to find a way of improving our existing relationships. Some scientists argue that we've evolved to experience loneliness in order to prompt us to maintain our connections with other people. They compare loneliness to thirst. If you are thirsty, you look for water, and if you are lonely, you look for other people. For many thousands of years, humans have stayed safe by living in cooperative groups, so it makes sense to have a survival mechanism which drives us to connect with others. Now, although loneliness is usually temporary, it is true that when it becomes longer lasting, the effects can be serious. There is good evidence that it can lower our well-being, affect the quality of our sleep, and can lead to sadness. It can also result in a vicious cycle in which people feel so lonely that they withdraw from social situations, which in turn makes them feel even lonelier. Research has shown that if a person feels lonely, their risk of experiencing depressive symptoms a year later is higher. Number 4. Loneliness makes you sick. Now, this one is a bit more complicated. You often see statistics quoted on the effect that loneliness can have on our health, and reviews of the research have found that it could increase the risk of heart disease and stroke by almost a third, and that lonely people have higher blood pressure and a lower life expectancy. Now, these are serious outcomes, but many of these studies are cross-sectional, which means that they just take a snapshot in time, so we can't be sure of the direction of causation. It's possible that unhappily isolated people are more likely to become ill, but it could also happen the other way round. People could become isolated and lonely because they already have poor health, which stops them from socializing. Or lonely people may show up in the statistics as less healthy because their loneliness has robbed them of the motivation to look after their health. And of course, it could be both things. It needn't be a case of happening in one direction or the other. It could work both ways. Number 5. I'm not looking forward to getting older as I think I will be lonely. Now, loneliness is more common in old age compared to other adults, but in one review of loneliness across the lifespan, they found there is also a peak in adolescence. Meanwhile, other studies show that 50 to 60% of older people are not often lonely. There is still plenty we don't know about loneliness. But one recent survey has revealed that the reality of feeling alone is not what many people think. The findings in this article are based on an online survey of 55,000 people from around the world called the BBC Loneliness Experiment, and it was created by academics at 3 British universities. Thanks for watching this video. You'll see a subscribe button on the bottom right of the screen, so please click that to make sure you don't miss out on any of my videos. And you'll also see a link coming up now to the next video in this loneliness series, where I talk about the 5 surprising findings that the BBC survey uncovered when they asked these 55,000 people about their experiences of loneliness and what we can do about it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.